Hello there, everyone, and good afternoon. This chat window is wrong again. It just keeps doing that. Let me fix the chat so it's not weird. Come on. Whoop. That looks good enough. Yeah, welcome to the Handelabra channel, Handelabra Games. It's Wednesday, it's 1-ish, so that means it's time for a developer stream sometimes, and that includes this week. So last week we tried to do a dev stream and everything exploded with Twitch having problems for everyone really around the world. But today everything is good, 0 drop frames, feeling pretty good about that. And we're going to go ahead and do some Aeon's End stuff. So Aeon's End is a game we're working on making a digital version of. It's a co-op card game, and yeah, it's available for pre-order now at aeonsenddigital.com. So I'm going to get right to it. I don't have video today, but just the screen sharing will hopefully do it. And feel free to ask questions in the chat, and I can get back to you periodically during the stream. Okay, so let's switch to Unity. Actually, first we'll switch to Trello and see what we're up to. So what I'm working on today is taking player cards primarily, maybe some mages, maybe some Nemesis stuff today, and making sure that the UI can support it. So different cards might have different effects or different interactions that aren't supported in the UI yet, and so we need to, even though they're fully programmed and working in the rules, there's still a whole other bunch of work to make sure that they work properly, in a visual interface, and that's something that you don't necessarily think of when you're thinking of programming a digital board game. It's like just program the rules and everything's there, but no, there's a lot more. And this is even just one more element. There's other visual elements and other things to deal with that we go through as part of the process. So you can see I've already been working on a few of them, and there's a couple actually that I had started working on, and David had fixed some issues with those cards that weren't working right. So this is something that maybe we'll revisit back to one of these. So I want to check out this Arcane Nexus because this one was mostly working, but there was an issue with it. So I'm going to just check this one and see what's happening there. So let's go to Unity. Unity, where do you go? And I'm not sure what my settings are here. I think I've probably moved on to other cards. Yeah, let's put in Arcane Nexus there. And skip that. Hey, Cytosine. Welcome to the stream. So we're going to check out the Arcane Nexus. I've got it here, and we can see there's a spell. While prepped once per turn during your main phase, you may return a gem you played this turn to your hand. So that's cool. So we want to actually put one of those in our hand so we can test it out. So let's start the game with one of them in our hand. So the debugs. This is an asset we have in most of our games where you can set up very quickly different debug settings for when you're developing and testing stuff. So I can say, I want the player cards to be this. I want to stack the turn order deck. I want to stack the Nemesis deck. Put some damage on stuff so I can test out healing or things like that. Just lets you really quickly iterate on things as opposed to having to get to a game state, which can actually take a while. You want to be able to iterate very quickly between things. So I got an Arcane Nexus in my hand here. You'll see all these cards. None of them have artwork integrated in yet. That's something that typically we'll do as a next step after getting the card to be functional. So that's Jennifer will be getting those graphics in at some point. So let's prep this spell. And you can see there's no art, it's just a white square, but that doesn't bother me. So if I play a gem, let's play this one because it's a little different than the others. So we just have an FPO button here. This is the while prepped effect, and it's FPO because we don't have an icon for it. I don't know what that icon is going to be, but it's going to be something that's going to, indicate you can manipulate your cards or do something like that. So we're going to use that. Actually, I'll put another gem here because we should be able to choose between two, right? Like that's the idea. You pick one. So yeah, click a card to return it to your hand. I've already got that part in there, so I'm going to click one. And then, so the idea was I should be able to play it again, but I'm not able to play it again. And that is the issue that I was having. So I'm not sure if that is a bug in the engine or if it's a bug in the UI. And I thought, let me just check in the engine board here. If there's something about that. If not, yeah, there was, this was a change based on this, but I'm not seeing it. So let's go and look at the log and see exactly what we're getting. And this might be something we need to return, go back to the engine developer again and say, this is still not working. And I did update the DLL, so everything should be up to date with those changes. So we're going to prep this, and to keep it simple, I'm just going to play the one gem. And I'm going to clear the console here so I can just look at exactly what happened. So I'm going to click the while prepped effect, and then yeah, we get, I do get a play card activate on the Moonstone Shard, and then I get an activation enabled on the while prepped. That makes sense. But we're not getting it highlighted. So we are getting the thing from the engine that we want, but I'm curious if maybe we're not, whether it's coming in disabled or something like that. So let's actually log a little bit more here. You can do like real debugging in Unity, but it can be a big pain in the butt when this function is going to get called a whole bunch. So, and then I'm going to add another thing in here. I'm going to add, yeah, so we'll log the identifier, and we're also going to log whether it can be used. Oh yeah, that's actually the activation. We can use the play variable. Can be used by view, which is a property that says, are we able to actually use it? And let's see if, like this, yeah, this is adding all of those activations, adding that activation in, but it seems like maybe we're not having it show up as being usable. So I'm just going to update that log and try again and see. And actually I'm going to change it so that Arcane Nexus is already prepped to begin with. And then that's one less thing we have to do when we're iterating. Hey, EJG D&D, welcome to the dev stream. All right, so now I can, oh right, I don't want to cast it. I guess it ends up being the thing I have to click anyways, but so, oh well. So let's clear the log and let's use the while prepped. Yeah, and this says it can be used by the view. So what is happening here? Why aren't we getting a highlight on the card? Oh, actually in this case, oh yeah, we got the play card activation view, but it's not getting highlighted, which is really weird. because it's getting true on that. And if we follow through, we can see what it's doing. So we found the card view, otherwise we'd be getting this warning. We're calling the activate for play card. And that function, we'll go back to it again. Come on, Visual Studio, don't be beach balling on me on a dev stream. How rude. I guess it's possible it could be deactivating right away, so I probably should throw a log into that too. That would be problematic. Yeah, are we just going to beach ball? Is that what we're doing? That's not productive. Let me just say. So apparently we're beach balling. So we'll just quit that. Force quit, and open it up again. Yep, lol. That is sometimes your life. Program is crashing or beach balling. Or on Windows, it would be a hourglass. Occupational hazard, yeah. At least it's better than the old mono develop. So, hey, we actually ended up at the place where I was going, so something happened there. So yeah, I'm gonna throw another log in here on the deactivate. Oh, and maybe on the update display too. Just to get a little more information. And we'll probably comment out these logs later because it will be a little too much that we don't want to have all the time, but might help us see what's going on. And we can try and do a debugging in if we want, but there's a lot of play card activations, so it might be annoying to do that. So update interactions, it's calling the base update interactions, which is what we actually want to look at. We have another one, another line here, which is gonna, if we can cast a spell, it's going to do that. But here the thing is, the highlighted should be, if anything can be used by the view, we should be returning true. So something is making things be false, and I don't like that. So let's see. This should help us see if there's something else coming in for that activation. I suspect that is probably what's happening, is something is coming in for that activation that's turning it off right away. So, did we compile? I didn't see a compile. That's suspicious. Let me just make sure everything's saved in here. And come on. Can do that by building the solution. Yeah, I guess maybe, I don't know. We'll run it and we'll see. We should see a mess more logs because of that. Yeah, so we'll finish casting. We get a bunch of activations. These are regular play card activations, Crystal, Crystal, Moonstone Shard. We actually get an update display on them right away. This is something that the game just does periodically, not periodically, but at certain points it'll update everything to make sure we're showing the right highlight or not a highlight. So when I play this card, I expect that a few things happen. So we get a bunch of logs about that. We get the other activation views update. The one for the Moonstone Shard turns false, which is what we expect. We want that to, you don't want to be able to play the card twice somehow. We get a deactivation of the activation. We expect that. And everything else is ready to go. And it's just updating those again, like, because it wants to. All right, so now let's hit the button here and see what all happened. So it's updating the crystals. Right, so we get an activation for the Moonstone Shard. True. Update display Moonstone Shard. True. We're updating that. True, 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 true. So why? Interesting. So by everything I can see here, we should be highlighting this. What's going on with that? The highlight is off. That is mysterious because that highlight should be on just like it is on these other ones. You can see that object is turned on. That's making that go. And the button is probably going to be turned off. Yeah, interactable is off, whereas on the other ones, interactable is on. That is really weird. So, that is puzzling. Why would it not? If we get true coming in, whether it's not saving that properly, like we're getting activate on the Moonstone Shard, update display on the Moonstone Shard. Wonder if this move card action view is clearing the highlight. That's possible, but then it is updating the display later. So I'm a little mystified, but we'll dig into it. So what else can cause it to be highlighted or not? So this update interactions is what is in charge of doing those things. And it's typically called by like other activations. And so this is updating. Yeah, these are all basically being called by other activations. So I guess what I'm going to do here is put a log in here, and then we'll be able to see when it's happening. So update interactions. And we can actually, if we use a regular debug log, we can put a connection to the view there. So let's do that. So we'll use card.identifier and we'll add the result of this. So it's getting deeper into a bug than I expected for the first thing on the dev stream, but you know, that's how things go. This is just real work that's happening here. Nothing scripted. And when we put a log like that, we can actually look into what's calling it and everything, so we can get an idea of where things are coming from. So let's click Finish Casting and add it up here. So you can see there's lots of stuff getting, all the market cards are getting that update interactions called, so it's like a very busy log to be putting in. But let's see what we can find out. So once again, I'm just going to pause it to see what we're dealing with. So there's the that's in the crystal. Where's my... Right, so here we're updating interactions on everything. Yeah. We get the activation on the Moonstone Shard. The interactions say true, so we should be showing the highlight from that. Then again on the Moonstone Shard, we're updating the display, and that updates the interactions, which returns true, or which is doing a true. And we got a Moonstone Shard update display again, and that's true. So I'm looking for is an update interactions on the Moonstone shard that's coming from somewhere else. So this is moving things. Aha! On this play card activation view update display, we get false. So why we lost the activation somewhere, or at some point in the engine, that activation is now returning false for it can be used by view. That is probably what's happening here. After the move card action view. Interesting. Yeah, and then once again, we get false. And we get false. So I'm curious if we're getting, so that can be used by view is like a helper property that does a bunch of things. And so I'm curious if, well, that's the thing, like update display, this update display call says that the Moonstone shard's activation is true, but then, so that should be stored in this click activation. So there's something funny going on here, and I'm not totally sure what. So we could add some more logging here, but it's going to be a lot. Let me think about what I want to do to try to determine. Like this click activations is, we only remove the activation if we deactivate. And that's not happening. So what I'm curious about is, how is it possible that we're doing that? Maybe on this call, I can add another log in here to just like list all the activations. And that's going to be a messy log, but it'll let me see what's going on a little bit. And you can see that like trying to debug into there, it's getting called so many times that it's going to be difficult to determine, to get the breakpoint to happen on the right thing. So yeah, finish casting, play this, and clear the log and hit the thing. All right. So we're looking for, oh, interesting. On the update display for play card, on the Moonstone shard, there is no activation. You can see on the gems, there is an activation there. Where's the activation going? Why did we lose it? Because let's look for a Moonstone shard. We activated it. Like this method is supposed to save. Yeah, so here, this update display for play card. Oh, you know what? That move card is, I think it makes a copy of the card. That's what's happening. That's a tricky thing. So that activation is coming in while so it does have to do that move card activation. The activation is coming in when when the card is still in the play area. It should be coming in afterwards. And actually, rather than, so what I could do is have whenever a card, right, when a card gets moved, it's like, it's just a view, right? So it's like tearing down and making a copy of the view so it animates to the right spot. And I'm pretty sure if we look at the move card action view, we have a thing in here where it's going to copy. Yeah, so here we do like, it's creating a copy where it's going to go and animating to that location so we can have a nice, animation that looks a little nicer. And that is why it doesn't copy those activations properties. So it could do that, but I don't think it really needs to. Like, there shouldn't be a situation where we need to keep those activations around in this case. So what I'm going to do is see if we can fix this in the engine. I'll say the play card activation is coming before the move card action, which is problematic for the view because the card is still in the play area, not in hand. Can the order of these be changed? And we'll see. So put a question into David on that, and we'll see if we can fix that. So this one is still in the UI side, an issue on the engine, so I'm going to move that back over. And we did change a bunch of stuff, but it was just logs. So what I'm going to do is probably just comment out these logs so we can have them back if we need to debug again these things. So let's just comment them out for now. That one is still, the activate is still generally useful. So not really a lot of changes, just added a commented out log. This one, I don't want that to be logging all the time. Where did maybe I didn't save the file? Update interactions. Oh, different file. Yeah, this is a really noisy log. And then, yeah, that one, okay. So I'll just add a little commit to update logging. That's fine. Cool. Well, that wasn't that exciting, but it was sort of an interesting dive into investigating an issue here. And I'll actually note on my Trello card here, the play card activation is coming in before the move card action. The move makes a copy of the card view, but doesn't copy the attached activations. So it gets mixed up. Looking to get the engine order of operations changed before changing anything else. So if it doesn't make sense in the engine, then we'll like update the move card action could like, copy all of those things, but that's a bunch of work on the UI side that we don't necessarily need to do. It might be just straightforward for the engine to do things in the other order. Cool. So let's see what else we got. Lava Tendril. This is an interesting card because we do actually damage without a spell being cast, which is something we specifically avoided in the demo because you didn't want to have to handle that. But we could do this other part, which is having a select target, handling select target when it's enemy targets instead of mages. So why don't we look at that? And let's go back to Unity. And let's have lava. Let's put Lava Tendril first here. And that's going to be a prepped spell. We'll have a look at it. So it's just black and white here, but you can see, or just a white square. Well prepped, at the end of your casting phase, deal 1 damage. And then when you cast it, you deal 3 damage. So it's actually, there's this extra damage that happens if you don't cast it, basically. So if I finish casting, I put a minion, there's a minion here and the Rageborn, so we should have a decision. If I go finish casting, you can see it's like click a Mage's Life Indicator to assign the damage. That's because we don't actually have a, we haven't supported being able to click on what you want to target. We've only had the select target when it's been mages. So we need to update that code and that interaction to handle selecting other things. Because you can, when we're doing other kinds of damage, if we restart here, like the 99% of the time in Aeon's End, when you're dealing damage, it's by casting a spell to the thing. And so that's that familiar interface from the demo where you click and you drag to what you want to target, right? You target Rageborn, target the minion, updates their hit points, and that's all nice. But this is, a different thing where, instead of that, we're not casting the spell, so we're just selecting a target. And so in this case, we're probably not going to do a drag and drop thing because we want, that really means cast a spell. It's more of a click on the one that you want to take the damage. And so that's what we want. We can support that already with mages, but we don't support it with the enemies. And so let's have a look at making that work. So let's go to that activation view. So that is going to be under activation view, select target. Cool. So you can see here in the code for this, we're going through the choices of the targets. If it's a mage, we find the Mage View and activate it. But you can see if it's not, we don't handle it. So one thing I like to do in these kind of cases is put in a warning that this isn't being handled. This is helpful for anyone working on it. Unhandled choice for select target activation, and that's going to be, we'll just put in the choice identifier. And we'll use the log warning format. And I usually put like a break point. This is only going to happen in the editor. And it will pause so you can see what's going on. And we can put that same warning here on the deactivate, but it's not super necessary to put on the deactivate because it's going to get to this one first. So yeah, so what we want to do is, so we can make sure that's going to pop up if we want quickly here. Make sure we're looking at the right thing, right? So we're just going to finish casting, and there's our warning. Unhandled choice for select target activation, Provoker and Rageborn, both. So yeah, so we need to handle both of those. The Mage View, so the activate for select target is something that we have implemented on Mage View. It shows, you can click on the life button. It also shows another button that you can select the mage with. I believe we have a thing called, yeah, for target damage, we have a mechanism for that. So if we look at, I think minion card view, let's look at cast spell activation, because cast spell activation highlights the things that you can target, right? So so with cast spell activation, we activate for cast spell, okay, and right. So here we're looking at, yeah, we're finding damage target views. When we're dragging, it highlights the possible targets. So we have this damage target view, and yeah, so potentially I think we might want to, for this, have this thing be able to take that activation, because this thing, shows highlights. It works with drag and drop. We could potentially have it like show. We could have it show the information when you hover over it about how much damage it's going to be, similar to the other thing. Yeah, so minion card view is a nemesis card view, which is just a card view, which is a base view. Okay, so yeah, so I think we're going to be looking for these damage target views, and find it. So I think with the cast spell activation, it just like basically highlights any possible target. Like there's no restriction on targeting with spells, at least not yet. There might be some that come up and we'll add like, something about that. But right now, as far as the UI knows, anything that's a damaged target, you can target it. So, and I think that's the case. That isn't necessarily the case with the select target, because this is giving you a list of what things we're targeting. So let's see if it's not a mage controller. We need to find what it is. So actually, I think this is just going to be like, maybe we don't need this warning, because basically like anything besides a mage, we're going to look for this damage target view, right? So I don't know if we have a method for that. Find damage target view. Look at that. And the choice is already a damage target controller. And that's, yeah, so that's actually looking for nemesis and minions already. So how nice. Cool. So we'll say, and we'll do a null check on that just to be sure. Yeah, so we don't really need this, I guess, because this code is gonna handle everything else. Not, we don't need anything else to look for. Cool. So, these damage target views are not, they don't have support for this activation yet. So let's just make sure that we're getting the right thing. Found damage target view. And let's see if we get that popping up. See if we're on the right track here. EJG can think of some things in future expansions. So yeah, so right now we're focused on the core game, but yeah, well, things are all set up to be modifiable for expansions. So yeah, so here it says I found a damage target view, and if you click on it, it'll highlight. Whoop, yeah, I double clicked. We found this card view, which is the minion, and we found the Rageborn as well. And I believe on the HUD there is this Nemesis HP is also a damage target view, so we could potentially have it be able to click on that. But let's start with this. Yeah, so we found a view for it, and let's add a way to activate it by clicking on it. So we're going to want a method like this. Activate and deactivate. So let's just put those in there. This is also doing drag and drop handling. And this is going to be pretty similar to how the Mage View does it, but a little different because we're not going to, we don't have life buttons and stuff like that. I think we're going to need to have a button. I need to include Unity engine.ui. We need a select button. We'll just call it because it could be used for other things potentially. And we need to potentially need to hold on to some of these things. Not all the time, not necessarily. but it can be useful to hold on to them. So, and actually, for the button to work, we need to hold on to the completion handler. So this is just an action. We'll just populate these with the same names. So yeah, so we're going to make this this button interactable. I don't know if we need to make it. You can probably avoid this stuff right now. Yeah, so when we get a select target activation, we're going to hold on to the activation and the completion handler, and we're going to update the interactableness of the button. And when we deactivate, we'll make the button non-interactable. Yeah, so then we need to have a method for the button getting clicked. Select button clicked. So you can mess around with like adding a listener to the button and stuff in here, but I prefer to use like the basic .NET action system. It's just a little more easy to deal with. And then you can see on here, similarly, we're going to use the same idea here when it's clicked. So let's go back to damage target. So if we have an activation, that question mark means if it's not null, we're going to check this. If can by use by view is true, so that we have to use equal true because this could be like this is nullable because of the null operator there. And if so, and if we have with this question mark dot, if this is null, we'll skip it. If we have a completion handler, we'll call it. So yeah, so that is in the code, I think should be what we need for that. And then we also need to, in the select target activation, we need to actually call that. View.activate for select target. And actually, I'm just gonna, this is very similar code, but it's a different method. So basically, whenever, this is the completion handler here, and the completion handler is, and here we could probably like make that completion handler is the same for both. So I can just actually completion, we don't have system in here. Action handler is this, which is going to be the same no matter whether we're giving it to a mage or to the other thing. So that will avoid that duplication. Deus86 has a question. Is there going to be any story or campaign like Aeon's End Legacy? Not in the initial version, but that's certainly something we can look at adding into the future. So the initial version is going to be just the core game, and you can set up whatever games you want. Cool. So here, yeah. So here, basically, we're getting either a mage view or a damage target view. Potentially, we could make like the mage view be a damage target view, but that's something to consider later. Why am I getting a little error thing here? Maybe it's just a glitch, which happens sometimes. Expected, another. Oh, I see. There's a bracket there that shouldn't be there. That is it, because I copied it from the function call. Cool. So this is calling the activate, and then we need to call the deactivate as well. We find the damage target view, and we are just going to deactivate. So you can see in this activation view, we aren't bothering with the update display thing because that hasn't been. That's generally needed when you have other things happening in the middle. It's something we might add to this if necessary, but it hasn't been needed yet. So this code is all pretty complete here, but we don't have those things actually in the scene yet. So we need to add those in because they won't work otherwise. we'll just get a bunch of null references, which I guess we can go ahead and press play and see those, because it's going to try to look up a button that doesn't exist yet. All right, so we're going to finish casting, and yeah, so there we go. So we're handling the select target activation, and we get a null reference on when we're looking for the select button. So we don't necessarily need a null check on that because there should always be one. And you know, if there isn't, the game's just going to get hung up anyways. So I'm not too concerned about that. So what we need to do is on the Nemesis panel here is where we have that damage target view. So we need to add a button onto this that you can click on to select it. So let's just add, for now, let's just add a button on here. We might adjust how we do things, and maybe we'll just make it so when you hover over Rageborn, it just gets a little darker. And I'm actually going to make the disabled color just pure, straight white, the same as normal color. These are tint colors. So, and because I want it when I'm, you know, you make it like dark gray, he's going to be like dark gray all the time, and we don't want that. So I want the disabled to be the same as the normal for this. And so that is that, and we need to connect that property, which is just the same as itself, but it could be somewhere else, right? So we'll do that, and then this is not a prefab or anything, but those minion cards are actually prefab, so we're going to have to go and edit that. So let's tighten up these things. Is this, yeah, this is to have a layout in it? No. So it's going to throw one of those minion cards right here. Not a full size, but a small size. Small minion card into the panel. And there it is. And yeah, it doesn't have a, I don't think it has a button to do that. So I'm actually going to add this script I have called a multi-image button. And this is a handy script. So the regular button class on the Unity UI only lets you like tint one image, but this one lets you tint all the graphics that are like in the object. So it like recurses down and updates everything. So you can see if I change, say change the disabled color, it's going to tint not only the main graphic but everything inside. And so that is what I want for this. And also I forgot another thing on the other thing, but let's just make these highlight colors straightforward. We might adjust how we do those, but for now let's do that. We'll start it out as not interactable. What I missed on the other thing, I connected the property, but I forgot to connect the click handler. So the click just wouldn't work, and that's not good. We want that to go to the damage target view class and the select button clicked method. And then we can apply that to that prefab and get, I guess we can just leave it in the scene. It's not doing anything right now. And yeah, on the Nemesis panel, I want to hook up the click handler of that, which I forgot to do, to the damage target view. All right, so you can see how everything is flowing together, hopefully, in this interaction. So now everything is hooked up, and assuming there's no bugs, we should get the basic functionality of being able to pick the target. All right, so we're going to finish casting. Cool, so we didn't get any errors, and we do, everything dims out, which is part of what the other thing does and you can see our highlighting is working here. So that's cool. I do think I like that like everything is dimmed out. I think I want it to actually bring everything up to the front. So that's something that we saw that the mages do. It like dims everything else and pops everything else on top. And let's see if we can do that for this. So that's what this set in front thing does. So maybe if I just put it, yeah. If I call it set in front is a handy little set in front false. So set in front is a handy little method that we have on our base view class, which we try to have everything come from. And there's some tricks in Unity you can use to make things like pop in front of other things by using canvases and stuff. And in previous games is like you end up with all these canvases scattered around over everything. So this is just a helper method that takes care of adding that component and configuring it if needed, and then you can call true or false, and it will clean up after itself, basically as needed. So that can be handy, and we're going to try using that here and see if those things pop up on top. So that, from a user experience perspective, everything is still active on the screen. It's just sort of slightly dimmed, and the thing that you were asking for an immediate decision on, those things are in focus. So that's the idea here. You can still like click on things to look at them and stuff, but here we see Rageborn is like visually popping, and this is visually popping, so we can focus on those. And actually, this hint is something we're going to update to. So let's click on the minion here and see if the damage happens. Yeah, it took 1 damage, so that's good. So that obviously there's no animation there yet, but it's functionally happened. And let's also try with Rageborn, because remember we set them up separately. Yep, so that took damage off. A couple things to note here, and actually I'm going to note them on the Trello card because we might not get to them today, is normally you want to be able to deal damage to the villain or the nemesis by going on their hit points as well, not just their main image, so I'm going to note that. Allow clicking on nemesis HP to select target. We want to update the hint text when it's enemies and not mages. Maybe it's not even the text, maybe it's a different hint somewhere else. And we want to show damage preview on mouse over. Cool, so the basic support for that is working now. So I'm pretty happy with the basic interaction there. So I think we're going to commit what we have here to make sure we're good with that. So let's go ahead and check out our changes. Oh yeah, I guess I put a minion card in there that we don't really need him in the scene. So let's go back to Git and see what our changes were. Here in the damage target view, we added our handling for select target. I guess there's a bunch of commented out stuff there that we don't need. Potentially, yeah, we could have things highlighted. I'll leave the commented stuff there because we might want to make the highlight more obvious. We updated the select target activation view to handle this side. We added some stuff to the scene for this and updated the minion card. So those all make sense for what we're committing. So support select target activation with enemy targets instead of mages. And I'll say this is basic support. This doesn't have all the elements we want, but one step at a time, right? EJG D&D points out from the base, Zaxos looks really tricky. Yeah, you need user experience to rearrange the turn order deck just for his ability. And yeah, so there are other elements in the core game that have to do with arranging cards, and we're definitely looking at having a UI for that that works well here. And ideally better than we do it with Sentinels, which is a little bit of a sore point there, so we'll want to have a nicer UI for that. Cool, so let's get to a couple of those items, because I think those are going to be nice. We want to have those other elements. Why are you going to Twitch? Yeah, so let's do the clicking on Nemesis HP to select the target. I think we want to do that. So let's go back to here. And what I think we want to do is, in this activation, we can probably close everything except the damage target here. This is just finding a single damage target view for that choice. And I don't even know what this is used for otherwise. I guess it's used for, for the deal damage. So whenever we do a damage animation, it's going to find that and do it. So actually, what I want to get are all the damage target views for that choice and activate all of them and not just one of them. So I'm going to, I think, modify this method. I'm still going to keep the existing method, but I'm going to make another version that returns multiple of them. So we're going to use IEnumerable, which is an interface that just says a list of stuff. And we're going to say find damage target views. And we'll just change this a little bit. So yeah, so here we're just going to return all of them. And there should only, for the Nemesis, we know we have multiple views for each one. For minion cards, we know there's only ever one view for a minion. So I think, yeah, we can just say if minion view is not null, we'll make a new tiny list. New damage target view with just that. Yeah. Cool. So now this will return back multiple, which we can use in the other thing. And then instead of having this code be all duplicated, we can actually we can call the other one. So here we're going to go, the views are find damage target views for target. And then we're just going to return the first one. So we're going to return views, and maybe this could be null because we didn't have the right thing. And we'll just return first or default. And so then all that logic is now going to be in here, basically the same logic, except returning a list of things. And then this one will still have the same result for whoever is using it already. So here, instead of getting one view, we're going to get all the views. And we still want to check if it's null, because that could return null. If it's not null, we're going to go for each view in views, activate it. So just this change should be getting both the, and I'm just going to copy this and then change the method because that's easy enough. We should be getting that hit point view. It's going to have a null reference because we didn't add the button and stuff onto it. So, but we can, if that null reference comes up, we know things are going the way we want. So let's try it. So we'll finish casting, and there we go, null reference because of that life button. So let's go and put a button on it. It has the damage target view, but it doesn't have anything else. So let's add, I think, actually, yeah, because we have a label in here, a multi-image button is going to look good because we want that text to get highlighted as well. We can always change it back if we want, but I think that will work. Yeah, and that will cover anything else that we add into the into there if we change how it looks. And we can always, adjust how we make this look. That's something that Jennifer will look at, the look and feel after this. And we want to add a click handler. And do that. And we hooked up the property, so I think now it should work. So let's go finish casting. Yes, so now we have Rageborn highlighted and the minion and the hit point thing. And you can see the highlight. It's hard to see when it's little, but if I go over there and zoom in on the scene view, you can see with that multi-image button, the text is getting that dimming as well. Cool, so that is, and then if I click on it, it all goes through. So actually you can see how easy that was to just, say I'm going to add another button that's going to do the same thing. Because of that activation pattern that we use, it makes it really easy to have the view have different ways to do the same thing. Very similar to the model view controller pattern that we use as well, where you can have different parts of the view showing the same thing or different ways to show the same thing without having to do a lot of duplication. So that was definitely a success for the activation pattern there. So let's commit this in because this is just one update to that we want to do. So also allow clicking on the Nemesis HP to select target. Awesome. So let's check that off the list. Damage preview on mouse over. This might be really easy. So let's have a look at the damage target view. Easy because we already have this drag and drop support for drag and drop from the spell. So you can see we handle this on pointer enter and on pointer exit. And this is looking for when you're casting a spell. If you're casting a spell, what's actually happening on the Unity side is you're drag and dropping. Like you have to click on the spell, drag it over, and as far as Unity knows, you're actually dragging that card view around. So you're dragging an object, and these functions get called by the event system, and we have a method to, if there's a spell being cast here, we're going to show those highlights. So that's cool. And you can see we're like getting the damage preview and all that stuff. And so what I want to do here is say, all right, what if instead of that, we have a select target activation, right? And what if that can be used by the view? Show a damage preview from that. And we could potentially use these highlighted as well. And not all of them have a life label, maybe, so we're doing a null check on that. And I don't know if this is going to tell me, yeah, this tells me the damage amount, so we can actually just use it. This is something I'm not totally sure if there's, like, we have a damage amount preview thing for the other thing. And I don't know if this takes, yeah, this takes spells. So I think this is just a straight up damage amount, but there could be effects that like reduce it or whatever, right? So this is something I'm going to double check. Right now I'm just gonna use it, but let's, and also I think I'm gonna check here, make sure that the damage amount is not null, because I want to use the value in here. Cool. So if we have a life label, then I guess that, yeah. Well, we can put that in here because we'll use this very similar pattern, and I'm thinking we can probably sort of, instead of duplicating this, we can combine it. But for now, I'm just going to redo it sort of in here because it might be different enough. So damage is that, and we'll just use this line to say adjust the number. And we'll right now I think just do the on mouse over, and it's not going to clear it, but at least we'll see that it does a thing. So let's check that, and then we'll go back and rearrange it, I think. All right, so finish casting, and then if I mouse, so I actually moused over this image, which is actually part of this blank space, and yeah, every time it's going down by 1 because it's just like decrementing it and not resetting back. But so there you go. So cool. So what I think we can do is basically instead, we don't want to duplicate that stuff. So let's move this damage value outside, and we're just going to set it. Set it in here. So the damage is we'll call it damage amount, and that's going to be a nullable integer, and then later here we're going to check, and we're going to use it. We'll just do that like this. We'll just calculate it no matter what. Yeah, so here we're going to do the damage amount. We're going to assign it there. And then we don't need this. Really. And yeah, so then here we just, the damage amount is just going to be, just going to be directly from the activation. And once again, like we might add a damage preview function for that, because maybe there's something that like reduces the amount of damage to it or stuff like that. So I'm going to add like a to-do damage preview function. And yeah, so then in either case, casting a spell or select target, we're going to update the life label. And I think the same thing is going to happen here. And here we'll just need a Boolean, bool reset life. And reset life label, we'll do that. And similarly, we have to check the other case. Then we have less duplicated code. Cool. So we might want to do those highlightings too, but let's see. This what we've done here should be enough to have the damage preview being shown and cleared. And we can double check that it's still working with the cast spell as well. All right, so if I drag a spell, yeah, we can see if I drag it over the Nemesis, we get the preview. If I drag it over that, we get the preview. And you can see the drag and drop is like these cool glows, and it turns red when you mouse over, and yellow when you're not. So I kind of like those, and maybe we'll use those for the clicking as well, because the real thing that the casting is this cool arrow. The other things are sort of related, but they're more just of a general highlight. So I think we could use the same ones, or we could always create separate special highlights. So yeah, you can see here, the numbers are going up and then back down. So that's what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and put that highlighting on. So I think, yeah, whenever, basically, we'll say can be damaged. Highlight. Whenever we're going to, it's actually here, yeah, I want to if damage amount has value, then we're going to show the highlight, and inside of that, we're going to adjust the life. Because even if we don't have a label for the life, which I think is now the case, maybe that is always the case, but we can show the highlight. So, and then here, we can hide the highlight, and in the same thing, maybe that's a bad variable now. We'll rename it. And here, yeah, we want to delete that. We'll just call this reset. Sure. Cool. So now we should get that cool highlight for this part. There's another highlight for, I don't know if there's another highlight for when something is available for drop. If we go back to game view controller, or sorry, where the cast spell activation. And when you begin a drag, yeah, it does actually set highlight when you're beginning dragging. So maybe here we will use that highlight as well. So set highlighted lets us have different indices, or we have multiple kinds of highlights on the object, so we can specify that. So for this, we can set highlighted for the can target, and we can, I think for this, we'll just set highlighted false, like totally de-highlight when we deactivate that, in case something else was still turned on. You don't want to leave highlights sticking around. So here we should get a little more of a cool visual when we're selecting a target. All right, so I'm gonna just finish casting. And see now we get the glow and then the red whenever we pop onto it. So if I click on one, then everything clears away and we carry on. So we'll probably have some sort of like explosion animation or something. It's different than the cast, right? But maybe we'll have some kind of animation when that damage happens. But that is looking cool. John always goes first. Yep, that is because my debug settings are stacking the turn order to always happen. that way. Cool. So I'm going to check out what my changes were. We are basically adding a bunch of cool highlighting. So add highlighting and damage preview for select target activation. Cool. All right, so that covers, the damage preview. And then finally, we want to have a hint that's for that. You can see it still says click on the mage. And actually, before I get that, I want to make a note in here. Is there a damage preview function to use for select target activation? For example, if you would select a minion who has damage reduction. And we'll look into that. So yeah, so the last, the really last thing is going to be this animation, which actually I'm just going to convert this to a card because it doesn't really prevent Lava Tendril from working now properly. And there's other cards where that's the case. So let's move that over. And then this will be the last thing to make Lava Tendril work in a pretty reasonable way. So the hint system we have is kind of roughly temporary, but I want it to still work. We will probably update it or change it to be a little better. But right now, what happens is each activation has like a hint object in the scene that it can show at the right time when it goes to be activated. So you can see that one popped up. This one over here, let's have a look at it. Clicky, 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 clicky. Select target hint. That's the one. So this is just, it's over here because typically we try to localize it to where things are. So those mage's life indicators are right by where that is. But we actually probably want this hint to be showing up more, over by the villains, like over here. So on the left panel, I actually have a hint in that neighborhood. Yeah, like this one. That's not really right. Main image, deck area. Where was that other hint that popped up? We'll put it in the same spot as that, because that was a good location. This is something we'll probably, we'll have this method of hints for now, but we'll probably add, we'll improve this system as we go. Okay, so we have a cast hint image here. And so that's in a spot that I'm happy with for like instructing to click up there too. So if we look at the activation view factory, we only have a one hint thing that we can support here. So I think what I'm going to do just for now is change this label to read differently at the moment. And then, because this is a system that we got in for the demo, and it isn't like the most flexible or whatever, but it was quick to get in, and it's quick to deal with. So I can just like make it say something differently for that. So I'm just going to grab the text of that here, and we have a functionality to have a little more power over what hint shows up. So on the activation view, we can override the update hint method, and so the base method is going to show or hide the right thing. It's just this is just like showing it with an animation, but here we can have it update the text based on the activation. Hey, thanks Striker Ninja for subscribing. Cool, so I'm just gonna make a little string for that. So we have a select target activation, and basically, so if all the choices, I guess we need to use system.link. If all the choices are mages, then we're going to use that message, and we can go string message. Maybe we'll have a default, maybe hint. And actually, yeah, otherwise it's going to be the other thing. So the hint is going to be click. I don't even know what the word is. Is there a generic word for a target like in Sentinels for Aeon's End? I guess it's click a nemesis or minion, right? It's going to be click nemesis or minion to assign the damage. Yeah. And that hint is always going to get assigned because we just have an if and an else. And then this.hint label.text equals hint. Yeah, so pretty basic idea here. There's nothing else right now that you can target. It's either minions or nemesis. I guess there's husks with the Carapace Queen, but husks count as minions too. So let's run this and we should be good. All right. So we're going to finish casting. And yeah, you can see the text on the hint over here now says click a nemesis or minion to assign the damage. Yeah, and it will show the other message if they're mages. So that looks good to me. And that is just a small change in the activation view here. Show different hint when selecting enemy targets. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and push that up to the repository and we can check that off. All right, so that is done. And so as you can see, we still have lots of cards that we're working on, mages and nemesis, but we're making good progress. And yeah, as EJG says, hype, 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 hype. That's probably going to do it for today. We're in almost an hour and a half. So I'm going to call that. But first, if there's any questions from the chat about how things are going or what we do in making a digital board game, I would be happy to answer. I will just look at some other cards while we see if there's some questions. Let's see what I got here. You can see we've got some of our mini icons, some of them that we haven't made yet. So you get that sort of code. There's that lava tendril we just did, bottled vortex. Destroy this, destroy up to 2 cards in your hand or discard pile. You can imagine how that's a whole UI thing to deal with, is selecting cards out of your discard pile. We've got flexing dagger. The next time you focus or open a breach this turn, it costs 3 less. That's one that has a bunch of new things to deal with. Or you can destroy it to deal a damage. And that's, again, this is a case where there's damage coming from a non-spell. Dark Fire, discard up 2 cards from hand, deal 3 damage for each card discarded this way. So that's a regular spell, but it's also, you know, something happens in the middle of the casting that you need to interact with, and the damage amount is going to depend on that. So that's going to be weird. Blasting Staff, you may cast a prepped spell that you prep this turn. If you do, it does extra damage. Unstable Prism, play a gem in hand twice and destroy it, or gain 2 Ether. Consuming Void, I like this card. Destroy up to 2 cards in hand, deal 3 damage for each card destroyed this way. That's very similar to the one where you discard to deal damage. Phoenix Flame, deal 2 damage, and then you can lose a charge to deal 2 additional damage. So yeah, lots of things that like affect. You can see why these weren't in the demo, because there's a lot of sort of extra riders on things. We chose stuff for the demo that was a little more straightforward. Feral Lightning, the spell may prep to a closed breach without focusing it. That one is a little tricky too. Yeah, Unstable Prism, potential for causing bugs by playing cards twice. That's true, the gems, because gems can have other effects too, right? So there could be some tricky stuff with that. Cool. Well, I guess we don't have any questions, so thanks again for tuning in. We'll try to continue having dev streams on a pretty regular basis. We're trying to have at least once every couple weeks as we go along, so you can see how things are going. And yeah, development progresses, and we're pretty excited to be getting Aeon Zen into your hand soon. So I'm going to sign off. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.